is Bob Mason from FX Empire and welcome to the daily crypto tech review with Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin and Ripple's XRP. We're looking at the MACDs, the moving averages, the day's support, resistance and pivot levels and the Fibonacci's. It is Saturday the 27th of March. Jumping straight into Bitcoin against the US dollar and the hourly candlesticks. But a start to the day after yesterday's rally. Going to see Bitcoin avoid the pivot at 53,764 to take a run at the first major resistance level at 56,229. We'll need to see support from the broader market for Bitcoin to break out from this morning's high. It was at 55,500. So buying an extended rally on the day, expect that first major resistance level and resistance at 56,500 to cap any upside. In the event of an extended rally, could see Bitcoin target 60,000 levels before any pullback. Second major resistance level sits at 57,464. A fall through the pivot will bring the first major support level at 52,529 into play. Barring an extended sell-off on the day, Bitcoin should stay clear of sub 50,000 levels. Second major support level at 50,064 should limit the downside. Looking at the MACD, we've got a widening of the bullish histograms through the early part of the day, supporting the early upside. On the EMA, the 50 has narrowed the gap on the 100 and the 200, also bullish for the morning. To keep through the early part of the day, avoid the pivot at 53,764 and break through this morning's high 55,500 to bring resistance levels into play. Better to do that and support levels will come into play. Cost of Ethereum against the US dollar also bullish this morning. Going to need to see Ethereum avoid the pivot at 1663 to take a run at the first major resistance level at 1738. We'll need support from the broader market for Ethereum to break out from this morning's high and back through to 1720 levels. So barring an extended rally on the day, expect that first major resistance level to cap any upside. In the event of an extended rally, could see Ethereum test resistance at 1850 before any pullback. Second major resistance level sits at 1776. Fall through the pivot will bring the first major support level at 1624 into play. Barring an extended sell-off on the day, Ethereum should stay clear of the second major support level at 1549. The 23.6% fib at 1579 should limit the downside. Looking at the MACD, got a widening of the bullish histogram this morning, supporting the early upside, and on the EMAs, the 50 is also narrowing on the 100 and the 200, also a bullish indicator. So keep through the early part of the day, avoid the pivot at 1663 and break through to 1720 levels to bring resistance levels into play. Failures to do that and support levels will come into play. Moving across to Litecoin against the US dollar. Slightly bullish start to the day. Going to need to see Litecoin avoid the pivot at 180 to take a run at the first major resistance level at 188. We'll need to see support from the broader market for Litecoin to break out from this morning's high and through to 185 levels. So barring an extended rally on the day, expect that first major resistance level and resistance at 190 to cap any upside. In the event of an extended rally, could see Litecoin test resistance at the 23.6% fib at 195. Second major support level sits at 192. Fall through the pivot will bring the first major support level 176 into play. Barring an extended sell-off on the day, Litecoin should stay clear of sub 170s. Second major support level sits at 167. Looking at the MACD, have a slight narrowing of the bullish histogram at the turn of the day, limiting the upside early on. On the EMA, however, the 50 has narrowed marginally on the 100 and the 200, which is a bullish indicator, but need to keep an eye on that. So keep through the early part of the day, avoid the pivot at 180 and move through to 185 to bring resistance levels into play. Failures to do that and support levels will come into play. Finally, looking at Ripple's XRP against US dollar, particularly bullish start to the day here. Then you need to see Ripple's XRP avoid the pivot at 0.5501 to take the run at this first major resistance level at 0.5897. We'll need support from the broader market for Ripple's XRP to break back through to 0.58 levels. So barring an extended rally on the day, expect that first major resistance level and resistance at 0.60 to cap any upside. In the event of a breakout, should see Ripple's XRP test resistance at 0.62 before any pullback. Second major resistance level sits at 0.6158. Fall through the pivot would bring the 23.6% fib at 0.5320 and the first major support level at 0.5239 into play. Barring an extended sell-off on the day, Ripple's XRP should still well clear of sub 0.5s. Second major support level sits at 0.4843. Looking at the MACD, we've got a bullish cross this morning after yesterday's late bearish cross, supporting this early upside. On the EMA, the 50 has pulled away marginally from the 100 and the 200 after yesterday's bullish cross, also supporting upside through the early part of the day. So key through the early morning, avoid the pivot at 0.5501 and break through to 0.58 levels to bring resistance levels into play. Failure to do that, and support levels will come into play.